Hello YouTube, welcome to another Workbench Wednesday video. This is Matt Wick speaking. You can see our LBSC E4, which is being transformed into Birch Grove. Last time round I took you through the making of the transfers, which you can see one of them here, which will go on the tanks. I showed you how to make them, and I showed you the process in producing them and then printing them and getting the right colour or shade of brown. Even though we still can't quite match it, we can resolve that a little bit later. And also on the loco itself, you can see the cab has now been refitted, and also you can see that a number of items, pipe work along the top here, have been painted and fitted, as well as the one running from the cab on the other side down to the smoke box. As I mentioned in that video, I was waiting for some washers to put on the main pipe. They arrived shortly after I finished the video, and here you can see the 1mm washers, which I bought from Prime Miniature Models, which you can just about make out on the packet there. A couple of pounds, but they're quite useful for adding sort of joiners or connectors to pipe work, where the pipes join another pipe or they join onto a surface. And I'll add a little picture into the end so you can see them all soldered on and the actual pipe fitted. Now today we're going to go through the removal of transfers or the print on the model. For example, the LBSC and the number here on the bunker. There are various ways of doing this. Some you can read in magazines, some you can see on YouTube. I'm going to take you through some possibly new methods, and also some more commonly known methods. So I'll show you some of the bits and the tools and the other bits and pieces that I have available, which I use, and hopefully you'll be able to use some of these on your own models for renumbering or whatever you wish to do with it. Right, here you join me on the workbench, and you can see a number of items in front of me here. So transfer removal or print removal. Now, if you don't know how all the lettering and how all the numbers are put onto the models, it's actually done by machine or a print press. It's called a tamper machine, I think, from what I can remember. So it's an automated thing. It goes back, picks up some ink on a pad, brings it forward and presses down. Now it's a number of processes. This could be 4, 5, 6, 7 processes. I do remember somebody said to me the BR logo will possibly be up to 50 passes for a tamper machine, which is quite a lot to build up that emblem or logo on the side of a loco. But it's mainly done by ink or paint. The press will go and get it and bring it back and press down on the model and take it away. There's a nice little video from Rapido Trains on that, on one of the front of their diesel models, so you might want to have a look at that, and I'll put a link in the description to it. But that's how most model manufacturers do it. Now, to remove the transfers, it can be a bit tricky, especially on a Batman model. Batman models have a tendency to not have such a good paint finish. What I mean by that is the paint is very thin, and it is on this model as well. Especially the brown on this one, it's very, very thinly applied. But to remove a letter or a number, there are various ways of doing it. The most common way of doing it is with a cotton bud and some enamel thinners. Now, you don't have to use enamel thinners, you can use Brasso, or some people use T-cut, but I generally use this method the most. And basically what you do is take a little bit of thinner, not too much, because you don't want to run it all over the side of this model, and then take off half the paint, which is the thing I'm trying to tell you. Very, very not well applied paint on this. On the old Hornby models, before they moved factory and went through all their clever design process, etc., the paint finish used to be very, very, very tough, and they would certainly take quite a bit of thinner to remove any paint. I think it took me 15-20 minutes to get one number off one model at one stage. It was quite well applied, but on these, got to be very, very careful, because if it has one sniff of thinners over the paint or the lining, they will pretty much disappear. So what I do is slightly dab some enamel thinners on a cotton bud, then I layer it around the letter or the number and let it soak in for a little bit. When it's soaked in, you can then just start rubbing it and remove it, and it should come off a little bit easier. So that's one method. The other method is the back of a knife. You might see this mentioned in some magazines. BRM's mentioned it a couple of times. You just use the back of the knife and scrape it off, and it will gradually chip away. So that's another method. When you do use thinners, by the way, it will leave a shiny, glossy surface where the letter used to be. Don't panic, because when you apply new transfers or another number or a letter along it, or on it, you then seal it in with some varnish. Now, most models are finished in a satin finish. I use an acrylic. I think it's Velio or Velzio or something like that. I've just recently bought some. I'll bring the can up in a second. And basically I seal in the transfers so they don't move, and also it dulls down the gloss, or the gloss finish where the number was taken from or removed from. So that will finish it off quite nicely. The other method is quite new. This is an electric eraser. I bought this off eBay for a couple of quid, because somebody recommended I try it. So it's powered by two AAA batteries in the back here, which then powers the motor, which spins the rubber attachment on the end. Now this is quite new. I have used this on the other side of the model, which I'll show you in a little while, but it pretty much does exactly the same as thinners do, but it's more accurate. So if I just want to remove an L, I can just remove the L, and it won't spill out anywhere or do anything, because I'm focused on that. So it's a much more accurate way of removing a letter or a transfer, which is quite nice actually. It's quite easy to use. The only thing you do have to be aware of is how much pressure you apply. You don't have to be very heavy-handed with this, very, very light, because basically what it does is it's spinning this tip, and it's basically rubbing off very quickly the print on the surface. And these are just made to actually erase pencil, but they seem to do quite a good job here. But that also polishes the surface like the enamel thinners and the cotton bud method. So you'll still need to apply some varnish to just seal in transfers, and also to make the finish satin again instead of gloss. Anyway, what I'll do now is I'll give you a small demonstration on how to remove a transfer with this little tool, which you may like or may not like. Or you may want to go back to the original method I showed you before, using thinners and the cotton bud. Okay, so back on the workbench, we're going to have a go at trying to get rid of the LBSC letters, and also 579. Now I'm not going to film all of it, as it's going to probably add up to around about 25-30 minutes. Which get a little bit boring towards the end. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the electric powered eraser. I'm just going to put a bit of tape over the top because you can see the button is a slide button to actually turn it on or off, and I don't want to keep trying to hold it and also work the surface as well, and trying to get rid of the letters and the numbers. You do need quite a light touch, as I mentioned previously, to try and get rid of the lettering. If you press too hard, you'll take some of the paint off as well, which is beneath it. So we just need the lightest of touches to try and get rid of the letters. So let's have a go at it now. With a piece of tape holding it on, we'll just lightly start off on the C. As you can sort of tell, I'm not actually pushing that hard on the surface to try and get rid of it, and as you can see, it's already started to come off, like with tape on my eraser here. So I'll do a little bit more and show you how easy and quick it is to get rid of, and clean as well. As you can see, that's one letter gone already. A little bit of glossing to the surface, but other than that, it's not too bad. Just shine it in the light, you can see it's slightly glossy where the letter used to be. But as you can see, it's quite quick, simple, and it doesn't cause any damage to the paintwork or surrounding lining, which is why I like this tool. It's quite nice to use, quick, simple, and also doesn't cause damage, and also it's a lot more accurate than using a cotton bud with some liquid on, which will then run everywhere and then cause damage to the surface. So I'm just going to finish off removing the letters, and hopefully you'll have a nice clean side of where the letters used to be. Okay, as you can see, we've now completely cleared the side of the model to put transfers on it. Must warn you, there are some slight, the paint finish on the cab is very, very thin. As you can see, even though I was going very, very lightly, I have gone through the paint, which isn't a big deal, but you do want to be careful with we're trying to get it off, and I think if you use thinner, I think we'll be probably having a bigger patch of missing paint than small little patches. We'll generally try and keep the paint, the same paint that, or similar paint to what the model manufacturer uses. I use Phoenix precision paints. This is LBSC umber dull, so that's P483. And I generally use this just to touch up any little areas. I thin it down slightly and then just brush it on and let it dry, and that generally covers the area quite well. But mainly you got to remember as well, we'll be putting a plate over the over this area anyway, so it will cover some of it slightly, but still you want to be as careful as possible when it comes to putting these details on and also removing the transfers. But as you can see, it's done quite a nice job on the tank, even if it didn't do such a great job on the bunker. But then again, I think that's just down to how these models are painted, and as I warned you, the paint is quite thin and will come away quite easily. But as you can see on the side of the tank, we've actually got no patches at all going through to the black plastic beneath. So this is a very good and clean removal, and this will be completely ready for putting the transfer on, which will be done in a little while. But as they say on Blue Peter, here's one I done earlier. And as they say in TV, here's one I made earlier, or the other side of it at least. You can see here the transfers have been applied and all merged in with a slight bit of paint. So the transfer itself is put into some water, and then it is basically 25-30 seconds. You slide it off, apply it like a normal transfer. You can use some decal fix as well if you wish, instead of water. Anyway, this is placed on, it's merged in with some LBSC umber brown, which you can see there. Because when you cut the transfer out, it chips a little bit around the edge. You might be able to see that. But then you do need to merge it into the paintwork. You need to cut off each edge slightly to allow for the lining on the loco. Anyway, when that's been applied and merged into its surrounding area, you can then seal the transfer in with some of this, which is Rapido acrylic satin varnish, which is permanent. I think I buy this from Jackson's Art Supplies or something. It's about £10.60 for a can. We do matte varnish, I do satin varnish, and it's very quick drying, about 20 minutes, so you can go make a cup of tea while it's drying and come back and do something else. But I always use this on transfers and things. It's quite a useful little can really of varnish, and I quite like it. I use it on pretty much everything. In regards to the etched plates, there's various ways of gluing these on or attaching them. One of them is not blue tack. You can use some super glue gel, very small amount of super glue gel, or you can use some varnish. You can either put a little patch of varnish down and stick it on, or, as I say, use the super glue method, which doesn't run, so use the super glue gel, and that's just done by putting a little splodge in the centre and then sticking it onto the side. We also need to paint the wheels on this loco, which I might have said earlier, which is the next thing I need to do. So I have to take the chassis apart, and also need to finish off the bunker, which will need some 1mm strips of plastic card and just slot them in between the rails. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little workbench video, and I hope some of you find it useful and you can use it on your own models and workbenches. And Hopefully you'll join us again when we have another one, which will depend on money, time, and what's left to build. Thanks for watching, and be inspired and enjoy yourself.